Welcome to the Morning Ping podcast, where coffee, innovation, and community kick off the day. This podcast dives into bold ideas, startup realities, and the people rethinking everyday experiences through technology and grit. Hosted by storyteller Justin Starbert, alongside Ping co-founders Jane Lowe and Rob Whitten. The Morning Ping brings a distinctively New England edge to building what's next. Grab your coffee and join our hosts.
Welcome back to the Morning Ping. My name is Justin Starbird, and as always, I am joined by co-founders Rob Whitten and Jane Lowe of Ping. Good morning, guys. How are you?
Good, Justin. How about you?
Good.
Hey, I have no complaints when I get an opportunity to talk to you guys. And today we get to bring in a friend of all of ours. Man, this is a pretty exciting. We get to welcome Hiten Sonpal, the CEO of Rise Robotics. Hiten, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Justin. How's everyone doing this morning?
Good.
Pretty good.
Happy Friday, man.
Yes. Can't wait for the weekend. It's been a long week.
Yeah. 2 more working days until next week. There you go.
That's right.
Well, Hiten, it is so exciting to have you on. There's a multitude of ways we could jump into this. You've worked with Rob for years at iRobot a long time ago. You also have recently invested in Ping as part of our crowdfunding community, and it is so exciting to have an investor on. What made the mission from Ping so important for you to jump into it?
Yeah, so I'd say that it wasn't necessarily about the mission as much as it was just looking at it as an investment. And I've spoken to enough early stage VCs that I understand what I need to be looking for in an early stage investment. And the 3 things that are really important to VCs are team, TAM, and traction, right? In those early stages, those are the indicators you're looking for. And as you mentioned, Rob and I go back a ways. We met at iRobot. I joke with Rob that, when we first met, I didn't really like him because we're both strong personalities and we were on 2 different axes of a matrix organization, right? And so, my job was to allocate resources. His job was to protect his resources. And so it was a natural tension. But we kind of, grew to respect each other. And then I saw his entrepreneurial journey. As he started a food truck and he was trying to hire veterans and do good while at the same time making a business happen. And that earned a lot of my respect. So, and of course, it made me realize that he's gone through this process of trying to start a business and understanding how hard it is, right? And that resilience that a CEO or a founder needs to have is just hard to explain to someone. And the fact that Rob was willing to do it a second time means he understood what he was getting into. So that gave me a lot of excitement about him personally. And then he had mentioned to me about Jane. And so I knew her background and her skill set, and it felt like a very complementary team. So that was the first item, which got me really excited. And then the TAM, of course, is huge. Coffee is just a multi-billion-dollar industry. And in most, call it commoditized markets, there are 3 players with 40, 30, 20% market share, and then everyone else is fragmented trying to get to the 10%. Coffee is interesting in that Starbucks has such a dominant market share that there's market to be stolen that's available. So I think and they can't really shift their business model to what Rob was proposing. So that got me excited too, because this was truly disruptive. And then in terms of traction, can they build it? He talked to me about some of the experiments that they had done. And of course, I knew from his times at iRobot that he could build it. So that all those 3 things really worked. And so I thought this was a good investment.
All right. So the real important question from all of that was the food truck. Was the food good?
It was amazing. I had the best breakfast sandwich ever. It was completely designed from scratch, a 2-egg sandwich. Oh, I even had the sausage made special at a butcher. Ugh, it was great. Really
As a beneficiary of Rob's cooking, I can attest. It's really good.
So there you go. You knew the team worked well before you even got involved with Ping. So there you go. That's great.
Oh yeah.
On the other side, Rob and Jane, you guys actually have invested in Rise as well. And we'll talk a little bit more about what Rise does in a moment. But what made the mission from Hiten and the team so important that you guys felt like you needed to also invest in Rise?
Yeah, like Hiten said, we worked together back in iRobot days, and he is one stubborn son of a gun, I tell you, and a smart son of a gun too, right? We'd always, bump into each other, and it worked out really, really well in the end. But yeah, he's right. When we first, started, debating resources, which is like this ongoing debate, I think, in a matrix organization. He always had great arguments, which is tough, right? And so, anyways, I think we're doing very similar things in our industries, right? Where we're taking something that is super old and antiquated and really just giving it a completely new generation, a completely new way of looking at things. And I mean, you talk about, capabilities. So obviously Hiten is more than qualified to lead this company. TAM, I mean, $750 billion market. It already has government contracts. I've worked defense. I know how sticky they are. So that's an amazingly good sign. And I know they have a great team, great traction, great product. I mean, some of the things that they've, been able to do it's literally world record setting, right? So I think that's all, pretty amazing. So that definitely was very convincing for us, to make that investment.
Yeah. Speaking of solving difficult problems and fixing broken systems, Hiten, we've talked a lot about that on the Morning Ping the last several episodes with our CTO Rory. Before that, even some of the folks from the real estate industry to talk about how there is an opportunity to fix this market. In your market, Rise is similarly, as Rob alluded to, trying to solve hydraulics, and in both industries, really, coffee and in the hydraulic space. The solutions that we're up against have been entrenched for dozens of decades at this point. I mean, or at least decades. What is that like for you to introduce people to Rise, and what should people know about what you're actually trying to solve?
Sure, yeah. Most people, as you mentioned, think of hydraulics as being the state of the art, but it is very antiquated. And just in general, hydraulic systems are slow, they're inefficient, they leak, and they aren't very durable, require constant maintenance, and they're pretty analog. And so now, as we think about what the future looks like with electrification and autonomy, there's this inflection point and this tension that's happening where hydraulic systems just can't transition to what people are looking for, especially with the size of the blue collar workforce shrinking. So the demographics are putting a lot of pressure on these manufacturers to transition to systems that are automated. Before they can do that, they need to get to systems that are drive by wire, which means that they have to be electric systems. And that whole process is held back because of hydraulic systems. And we have a technology that, instead of using liquids to push things around inefficiently, we use belts under tension to move things very quickly and very efficiently, and digitally. So we enable that transition to be very, very easy.
And that's not dissimilar from what Ping is trying to do with robotics inside an autonomous pod. What struck you when you heard about what the solution was that they had created for this issue in drive-throughs?
Yeah, so for me, it wasn't as much about the robotics because I knew that Rob could solve that problem, right? And so it was more around the customer pain point. And so I'm not much of a coffee drinker, but when I've had, a late night at work or something like that, I do need coffee the next day. And the last thing I want to do is stand in line, because I need coffee once a month, but when I want it now. I don't want to be in a drive-through or getting out of my car. I need it so I can get back to work. And and I want it to be quick and easy. And so when Rob pointed out that that's what he was solving, I was like, hey, this is it. This is the pain point, right? There's a line of people. I see them, trying to get their coffee, their morning coffee. I see people coming into work with coffee in hand. So I know they've wasted a bunch of time waiting in line. And it seemed to me like it was a pain point that had to get solved. So I really like the problem he was solving.
How important is the customer experience for you when you think about that coffee and by extension, even in Rise and the productization of the Beltrolic technology?
But what I really liked about what Rob was doing, what Rob and Jane were doing, is the personalization of it. Like you could do things with the cups that you could not do if you had a human operator delivering the coffee, right? You had machine and you had access to new things. You could give people discounts. You could give them reasons to come back. You could make them laugh in the morning, right? Which, if you're not necessarily going to get that from a barista, it's hit or miss whether you're going to have a
Yeah.
good experience.
Yeah.
So I thought that was very ingenious.
I mean, Jane has spent a lot of time on that, making sure that there's a five-star experience every time that you start an order. Similarly with Baldrolic, people want to know that it's going to work. It's going to work every time, and that it's going to be as easy to use as the hydraulics that are in place now. How much
But I
time?
think, oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I just, thinking about like talking, Hiten talking through, like, there's also like a visceral reaction for anybody that's been around hydraulics that have failed. Like, I'm just thinking back to my army days where like a lot of these, big heavy pieces of equipments are hydraulic driven. And I've seen those freaking hoses go and like things drop very, very rapidly, very close to, injuring somebody before. So like, in the same token, I think his, um, it, there's not only the technology advantage and all the things that we talk about, but there's also those moments of like, hey, this hydraulic failed and almost hurt somebody. Gosh, isn't there a better solution to it? So sorry, it just popped in my head.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I mean,
Yeah.
how has that been part of the journey for Rise?
Specifically,
Solving,
which part?
solving
Oh,
for,
so yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So as Rob mentioned, we actually have a lot of investors that have previously experienced hydraulic systems, and so they understand the pain points, and they're like, "Oh, this would be fantastic to get rid of." We have investors from the armed services who are retired, who just like Rob, have had experience with safety issues with the equipment. And then Rob didn't mention the part. I guess he didn't have to do it, but someone has to then clean it all up. It's
Oh
such a
yeah.
mess.
Nasty.
So yes, and it's hazardous, so you don't want to be really handling it, and you need PPE and so on and so forth. So um, yeah, so we've had a lot of interest and a lot of excitement.
all right, I guess this is for all three of you to come back at me with, but where you are entering these industries that have been integrated for quite some time, there have been solutions that have existed for years and years before you entered. How important is it to tell your story? Like, what do you do to get that out there? And what do you think resonates the most?
I think Jane's the expert in telling stories, so I'd like to hear from her first.
That's right.
Our story. So we find that a lot of our customers and investors really care about the genesis of it. Like, why? Why are you doing this? They like hearing about how we were super scrappy and bootstrapped our pilot. They like hearing the like journey that we've made. I think that's been a big piece of it. It's not just like the coffee entrepreneurship or tech. It's like we as people what have we experienced along the way. I think that's a big part of it. I think for me, I'm not technical as everyone knows, but like when I think about Rise, like that's for someone who's non-technical, that's like a hard story to tell me because I don't understand it. So the importance of making it clear, speaking about benefits, speaking about the dangers and safety. Like as Rob and Hiten talk about it, there's like more I'm learning about it. So I think that's super interesting is how do you make that story come alive for people so they understand the pain points of it and the solution. So yeah, so I think there's different ways to think about story.
What's it been like for you, Hiten?
Yeah, so storytelling is not my background. I have a computer engineering background and sort of worked my way up to learning the various different disciplines I needed to pick up. So we've tried everything and tried to see what sticks, and and what we found is different things stick with different people. So we talk about the climate tech aspects of it and how it uh, helps us electrify systems and clean the environment. And that's resonating with some people. We talk about how we're making the quality of lives of soldiers, the people that protect us, better at work. And that's resonated with a lot of people. We talk about the strength of the system, the Guinness World Record. That's resonated with some people. So I think we've collected a uh, quite a wide diversity of investors by trying different things and experimenting and really trying to share as much as we can about the company.
Yeah.
And oh, sort of differently, but we also sometimes put together video snippets of us working and getting things happen towards a deadline, which gets investors excited. And we try to sort of share the same level of enthusiasm that folks can easily see in Rob and Jane's posts. Of course, we have a larger team, so we have to sort of polish it a little bit and get it out there. But we try to put those out so folks can see that we're really working for our investors.
You all mentioned team in your answers today, and knowing you the way that I've been fortunate enough to over the last, well, for Rob and Jane the last year or so, Hiten the last couple of years, and Rise overall for a few. A team is something that is so important, and you attribute a lot of your success to. Right now, both companies are participating in a crowdfunding campaign on WeFunder, and each of you have highlighted members of your team as areas where is also a differentiator for you. Rob, I'll start with you because you have the newest announcement with bringing on a CTO and Rory McKean. But what has it meant for you to start to build this team to execute on your vision or the vision that you and Jane created?
Yeah, I mean, one of the coolest things about bringing on Rory is not realizing how much he could actually do for us until he's there. I'm like, oh my gosh, and it's like the sky's clear a little bit, and there's oh my gosh, I don't have to solve all of these myself. Like somebody else is going to come in and not only solve a bunch of problems so I can go work on other things and start to grow the business and think into the future. Because once all the robotics become boring, this is a huge operational problem, right? So we got to start thinking about all these things and the next round and all that sort of thing. But he can take all the things that I was thinking and then take them to another level, right? And take them to either a simpler solution or a more elegant solution, right? He's just jumping right in there. So I think having the right team members, like I would say, we magnify each other. The sum of the parts is greater, or what the whole is greater than the sum of the parts, right? So like putting us all together. The other cool thing is Rory, Jane, and I work extremely well together. Like that has been also just kind of like we thought we'd all kind of get along. We had a dinner and kind of chatted a little bit, but as we go through our leadership team meetings, we're realizing that we are actually a really great team. To having three people allows you to not have ties, right? And so like you can always break your ties. You have another perspective. Like you have this amazing resource of technical knowledge. So like it just brings us to a whole new level. And before it was really kind of me and Jane, doing most of everything, Jane and I doing most of everything. And, we'd hire a little bit in here and there, but now it's the three of us marching forward. And then we have, the tech support that, we buy in, that sort of thing. But yeah, no, it's been exceptional for us.
I mean,
Good.
Just to add on to that a little bit,
Yeah,
I think it's interesting because when it was just me and Rob, like full time on this for years, it was easy to communicate. Like it's just he's there because we're not just like business partners, we're life partners, right? And we talk about this 24/7. So we both worked in like very layer stratified companies where we all know like communication is super important. So when Rory came on, it was like just being, like he rightly said that he was concerned we would always be talking about stuff without him. And so we made sure that we always include Rory on major discussions, anything, especially since And as we're finding out as we grow a little bit bigger, is that like we're moving so fast, like the lines of communication have to be open in order for us to be like not surprised by what's like developing because like we're just all moving so fast. So I think it's important to like remember all of our learnings from when we were working in layered companies and thinking about how we grow a young company culture so that like communication is always part of it.
Yeah, it makes for some late night chats, but I think and I think we all appreciate. We don't just see Rory as a CTO; he's a part of our leadership team, right? And so, like every major decision that requires thought from that team, he has to be involved in. And sometimes, if we're talking about it late at night, then he needs to join in. So we bring him in, and he's happy to do it, which is great.
That's usually when you've switched out of your coffee into something a little bit different, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So,
Some whiskey dreams. Yeah, there you go.
Hiten, your team is a little bit different in that you stepped into the CEO role after Rise had been in existence for nearly 10 years, and there's four co-founders that you had to not just galvanize but also lead. And then some of that you've talked a little bit about leading in creating friendly competition or friendly conflict to help them see a problem uniquely so that they could solve it differently. So your perspective is a little bit different. Share what the team has meant for you and Rise since you joined a couple years ago.
Yeah, so what was interesting about the co-founders at Rise is they're all different and had different skills. So that was very good. And then my skill set complemented theirs, just not just technically, but also from a product side. And so the five of us, just like with Rob and Jane adding Rory with a different skill set, I joined with a different skill set. And so went through the same process of, hey, Hiten can do, for them at least, Hiten can do a couple of things. Like he can look over the electrical designs, he can hire people, he can think about the product roadmap and raise money. And so it was a gelling process, and I have really enjoyed starting with a team that was already good. And then to your point, to take a good team and make it great, usually the thing that's missing is healthy conflict. We want people to actually be assertive about how they see things, right? As opposed to avoiding the conflict. We want them to come out there and talk about the problems. And then we also want them to be relationship centric and flexible in the outcome. And that way, you can bring all the issues to bear, and then we can collectively solve a problem and get behind it and all get aligned in the same direction. When that conflict doesn't happen, folks can leave and all head in different directions. So it's really important to surface all of those issues. And I've had to do that every team I've led because it's not easy to have healthy conflict. And I don't enjoy it either sometimes, but like you have to get things out there to move forward.
Yeah. One thing that is because of that, what's come out of that healthy conflict is solutions to challenges. And one thing I think that Ping is certainly solving right now and working on is the element of scaling while still innovating and balancing that long-term vision with the day-to-day execution that is required to grow the business. I get this is for all three of you, but I'll start with Hiten and then let Rob and Jane jump in to share their perspective because that's been something that's been pretty unique to Rise because you came in and there were concerns with the existing product, so you needed to innovate, but you have to have a long-term vision to actually get the product out the door, create tests for it, and then eventually, start looking at customers. What has that journey been like for you?
Yeah, so for us, it was really important to find ways to focus near term. And we were working on some long-term projects, which I had to pause. And then the next step was to try to do more or accomplish more. And the only way to do that is to cut scope, really, because people are already working as hard as they can. So it's not fair to just say, hey, the timelines have shrunk. You're going to do the same thing in less time. It's really more about, okay, what are some things we can't do? And part of that healthy conflict is really needing the team to push back when I ask something and not just do something because I'm the CEO. I really want them to say, hey, there's an easier way to do this, or can we just give this up for this one trade show and show it at the next trade show? Do you have enough here to galvanize customers? Those sorts of conversations. So that's helped us move faster. Is just cutting scope and focus on some near-term milestones.
Yeah. How about for you, Jane? What has it been like to, I know you look, you always have an eye on the future, so you got to kind of rein in some of the day-to-day stuff that, Rob can get, I don't want to say distracted by, but is working.
Lasers.
That's why I'm asking her first.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's interesting because Rory and Rob are both technical, so their bias is to make decisions that are like that speed the technology or solve problems faster on the tech side, whereas I'm like constantly thinking, okay, well, how does this influence the end consumer? So yeah, we have a lot of conflict about that sometimes, but in a good way. Because then I feel like because there's two of them, my voice has to be a little bit stronger in terms of championing the customer who's not in the room with us, so I have to represent. But we have some healthy debates about that for sure. And I come from product development, so I'm not unrealistic about how sometimes things are really hard or like, it's a give and take
A
situation.
little bit unrealistic, but that's okay.
But I think that, we together it's a learnings like what we can take a risk on or give up or whatever for the customer or on the tech side to make sure like the customer's happy. So anyway, yes, healthy debate.
All right, Rob, I'll give you the last word on it.
Yeah, I mean, I would say we argue really well. I mean, healthy debate is the nice way to say it, but we straight up argue sometimes, like very well, right? Get all of the points out there, but once we figure out like which path we're going to go down, one of the things that we pulled from Amazon is a principle called disagree and commit. So disagree all you want leading up into that decision. Get all of it out on the table, make your assessment, but once you commit, once you make a decision, we all get behind that decision and we all treat that decision as though it's ours, right? So even if we didn't initially agree with that path, we all get behind it. And I think that's probably the most important thing out of having that, healthy tension is figuring out how to move past it, right? And say, okay, I encourage this for next time, but now we're going to go down this path and we're all going to go down that path together. Most of the time, getting a successful outcome is partially the decision, but it's more about the execution and how well everybody gets behind the decision to execute it.
And I'll be real, like it sounds really cool to say disagree and commit. You're like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But in reality, we're all such strong individuals with strong point of views that, like for me anyway, it was like kind of hard to do at first. But I think over time, I'm like, okay, I see how this works, but it takes a while.
It,
Yeah.
it's tough, right? Because after the fact, and sometimes I have to disagree and commit to things that the team wants to do, right? So I've got outvoted and folks, everyone's like, we need to go this way. And like, okay. And then with my experience, I'm like, it's not going to work, but I'm committing to this, right? And then when it doesn't work, you really have to lie down and not say anything because you committed to it. And so you just kind of help the team get through it. You can't say, I never wanted to do this from the get-go. Like that cannot show up in a healthy team. Like you just once you committed, you get there, then it's just you roll up your sleeves and you help the team get unstuck the best you can.
And
Is it
then like sometimes you just have to let them fail on their own, right? Like the team, like
Yes.
just letting people make their decisions and fail and learn.
Yes.
sometimes those decisions work though?
Mm.
Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
you disagreed, and I mean, and that's the benefit of also committing to it is that everybody's still trying to solve for it. So not always. Yeah, it's always hard when my idea is not the best and then it works out better. I mean,
But I love being wrong. It
yeah,
means there's an option
Yes.
that I didn't see,
yeah,
or just didn't fully understand, and somebody else on our team did. Like that means we are now more than what we were separately, right? So I think that's you have to be okay with being happy being wrong.
I'm thrilled. I'm the happiest guy. No,
Yeah.
it's kidding. So one thing, Hiten, you talked a little bit about that it sort of weaves everything together is some of the muscles that are created when you start something or a company or a venture that doesn't have the amount of success that you were initially hoping for. It doesn't necessarily mean it was a failure because, you know, you learn so much generally in opportunities that don't have the outcome that you were intending. That said, you mentioned offline that it builds this muscle group that really leads to resilience. And, you know, some of those things are also what keeps a company moving, especially right now, where in both cases, Rise Robotics and Ping are going through crowdfunding campaigns, fundraising in general. There's pressure to commercialize and be in the market as soon as possible. And there is a layer of, you know, insecurity of if this will work, and then, you know, whether or not, you know, people actually want what you're solving for. How do you communicate that in a way that's healthy? How do you continue to make decisions when it's not easy? And, you know, what is some advice that you would share with Jane and Rob and others listening that are working on their next big thing?
But I'd also love to hear advice from Jane and Rob as opposed to just share mine. I think just getting used to failure is super important and understanding that it's not the end of the world. And I don't mean failure in a big way, but I mean that there are small setbacks every day, and just getting through those is what ultimately develops the strength and the fortitude to get through the bigger setbacks, right? You just have to go for it. There's no other answer in my book. Yeah.
Jane, Rob, would you like to share any thoughts on the idea of resilience and continue to push forward when it's difficult?
Oh, I hate to fail. Like, I hate it when I'm wrong. But I see the value in it. For sure. I mean, there's been so much literature and podcasts and like spoken conversations about what failure means to an organization, how it should be a failure embracing type of thing. And I absolutely do believe in that. But for me as a person, like if you fail, then the question, I'm immediately on to the next thing. Like, okay, well, what can we do to remedy this? Or like, what do we do to prevent this from happening next time? Or embed this knowledge? Or, I'm just moving on. Um, and I think that's what helps me be resilient in the face of, adversity.
Rob, anything to add?
I guess for me, I just don't see myself ever doing anything else anymore. Like, we have amazing product market fit. We just have to make it work. It's just engineering. I just have to solve these problems. And guess what? We have this amazing, amazing product, right? So, to me, the idea of going back to working for somebody else and making decisions based off of like company metrics and battling out for resources with other programs, I can't picture going back to that. Right now, we look at what is the best thing we could possibly do to make the customer experience better, to make it operations better, to make it all flow, and we just let logic do the work, right? So it's such a refreshing way to make decisions and to look at metrics that I don't think I could go back to anything else. And we're going to get through this. Like, it's okay, we'll get some resources here and some funding here. If we have to be scrappy here, okay, we'll figure it out. But like, we're just going to keep going. So you can climb on the train and be part of it or not, but we'll figure it out. Like, this is what we're doing.
And I just want to add to that because Rob touched on it briefly, which is that, when you do fail, like you can frame it as, and I think Jane said this implicitly, you're either succeeding or you're learning. Those are the choices. There's no failure, right? So
Yeah.
that's why Jane's able to move to the next thing. And to Rob's point, one place you get the energy when you do fail or have problems is through the customer, because you are solving something and building something great for someone who has a pain point that you're going to fix. And that's where I get my energy from, just like Rob does.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I really appreciate you guys sharing that. All right, we'll get you out of here on this. Hiten, you and I in all the other mediums have had this conversation a lot, but what does success look like for Rise in the next 6 to 12 months and 5 years?
Well, we've gotten to the point where we're starting to think about financial metrics. So being able to hit $1 million in commercial revenue over the next few years is going to be our big milestone. We're doing well on the DoD side, but our commercial business is what we're trying to focus on and grow.
That's great. Well, thank you for sharing all of your insights today, for joining us on the Morning Ping. Really appreciate it. For those that are looking to invest in Rise, it's wefunder.com/Rise Robotics all together. And for those that have been following along with Ping, of course, our fundraising is at wefunder.com/Ping. Rob, Jane, Hiten, thanks all for joining me for this today.
It's fun.
All right.
Great.
Happy Friday. 2 more days to go before the next week.
That's right.
Hey, for that, Hiten, we'd say go ping yourself.
Yeah. Just ping yourself.
You'll say it.
On behalf of my guests today, you've been watching and listening to The Morning Ping. Until next time.